Welcome to Season 5 of the Activation Nation podcast. We are thrilled to have you join us as we embark on another exciting season filled with inspiration, empowerment, and community. On this podcast, we will explore the transformative power of the LifeVantage products, share compelling stories from consultants across our community, and provide you with actionable strategies to elevate your business. Whether you're a seasoned expert or just starting your journey, our aim is to equip you with the insights that you need to grow. Expect a fantastic lineup of guests, including top leaders, industry experts, and passionate consultants who will share their unique journeys and strategies that have led them to success. Each episode is designed to be packed with valuable content, from the latest product launches to effective marketing techniques and personal development tips. So, get ready to dive into an inspiring and informative Season 5 of the Activation Nation podcast. Let's activate your potential and make this the best season yet. Welcome to this special episode of Activation Nation. I'm your host, Lexi Ackley, and today we're bringing you the audio from an exclusive training session from none other than Erin Brockovich. Erin Brockovich, known for her tireless work as an advocate for environmental justice and leadership, joined us for an exclusive training with our September Growth Summit attendees. In this episode, we'll be sharing the audio from that exclusive session, where Erin dives into the principles of effective leadership, how to inspire others, creating lasting impact, and how to lead with integrity no matter the challenges. Get ready for a powerful conversation that will leave you feeling motivated and equipped to take your leadership to the next level.
Obviously, with Erin, we all know her story about Hinckley. And when we think of Erin Brockovich, Erin, you're on Delta right now. So you can watch that. You can watch Erin Brockovich in the air right now. But we go straight to the amazing work that she did in Hinckley, winning the biggest class action lawsuit of the time, just incredible. But Erin has done so much more than that. And I want to make sure that you know, some of the amazing accomplishments that you have. You are learning from someone with an incredible pedigree. Erin is an award-winning author. Her amazing book, Superman Isn't Coming. You'll have to check it out if you haven't. She is heavily involved in producing. In fact, she's an executive producer of 2 films that she's working on right now. Also heavily involved in the dyslexic movement, working with Sir Richard Branson as an ambassador there, and has done amazing work. If you've heard her story, kind of her journey begins with a teacher noticing this in her and seeing more, and she's continued to just help others. She is very passionate, obviously, about that environment and continues to do advocacy work there. She's a keynote speaker, travels internationally all the time, is working on policy changes. I mean, I literally asked her, so Erin, in your free time, you just keep helping people. And really, that's what she's all about. So I wanted to share that because, again, we all go back to what we know of Erin, but she has done so many things that it's truly amazing. And, my favorite thing is her partnership with LifeVantage over the last several years has been just such a differentiator, and we're so lucky to have her with us tonight. So I've known Erin about 2.5, 3 years now, and I have to tell you, I learn from her every time I'm with her. She is as real as they come, which I so appreciate and admire. And she's always fighting for everybody to have opportunities. And I just have always loved that about Erin. So excited for you to get to have this one-on-one time with her tonight. But Erin, we're going to jump right in. First off, we're going to talk just a little bit about leadership. Then we're going to go into a Q&A where people have submitted questions for us. But I kind of want to talk just about your leadership journey and where did it start? If you look back to how you've developed as this incredible leader, where did that journey start for you?
I still don't even think myself as a leader, because you just are who you are. And it took me kind of a long time to maybe figure that out or be able to answer a question like that. And it took me back to my upbringing. I was born and raised in the Midwest. My dad was an engineer. My mom's a journalist. I'm a little bit of both of them. And what really kind of formed me was first of all, I'm a dyslexic. So very early on in my life, I was labeled, I was told I was stupid. I needed to be in special ed. I was removed from my peers. I was different. And that still sticks with me. People may not even know it today, but that's still inside of me, that I have to like recognize every day. Because it's damaging, to your self-esteem. You can get a real negative voice in your head. And my mom was key in helping me kind of get through that. I mean, she would tell me, just because others saw me as weird, I don't know, whatever we want to call it, that was their choice, but it didn't have to be my choice. And that was really important to me. And I carried it with me my whole life, but I didn't always understand it. And it took a while for me to reflect back on that and place it somewhere. But she was the one that taught me about not giving up and would tell me, when the going gets tough, the tough gets going. We've all heard this. I just know we've all heard it. And how you can have failures and setbacks and you don't let them keep you down. So she taught me about a word called stick-to-itiveness. I use it every single day in my life. In fact, I have to remind myself every single day in life, forget work, forget it about being leadership. It's about being human. It's about moms. It's about single moms. It's about people suffering illness and grief. It's a life experience that can drag you down. And stick-to-itiveness, its definition is a propensity to follow through in a determined manner, dogged persistence born of obligation and stubbornness. And I never forgot it. I'm as stubborn as they come. And by the way, I've run into many of people, especially women, who can really dig in on issues that are important to them. I'm dogged, I'm determined. And I had all of those things just kind of about who I was, and was often told, to tamper that down. But that stick-to-itiveness, even today, and I'm getting ready to jump on a red eye to go do work in Georgia. And I'm thinking, oh my God, I can't do this. But I hear the stick-to-itiveness. You can't quit. You got to keep pushing through. Be determined, be dogged. Take a break if you need to, but get back in the game. And so stick-to-itiveness really formed me. I didn't know that though until very much later in life, and I'd had children. I was working in Hinckley, and the pressures that I was up against because the label started again. When I started my work, you're not a doctor, you're not a lawyer, you're not a scientist, you're not this, you're not that. I'm like, we could have gone down a list of the things that I'm not. And I'm like, but why would that be preventing me from being a human, from wanting to believe in myself to go out there and do something? So my mom was really instrumental to me. I had a school teacher that taught me not to get stuck in a box of self-limitations. Oftentimes we think other people are putting us in there, but many times it's us. It's that perception of who you are or how you feel about yourself that you limit yourself. And so she let me, because I was always failing my test, she recognized something was wrong, but she tried something different. She stepped out of the box. She stepped out of a comfortability zone and started giving me all my tests orally, and I passed everything with A pluses. And so it changed my GPA, it changed my self-esteem, but she taught me about oftentimes that box of limitations is set on by ourselves. And for me, it was about learning how to push off what others thought of me and formulate my own perception of myself and embrace that. So those are two key women in my life that altered it. And it wasn't until I became an adult and well into my work that I was able to look back when I stepped into a community that doubted themselves, that people, would say, you're wrong, you're hysterical, you don't know what you're talking about. And I think so many of us in life have had that put on us. I'm no exception. I look back on the film and I think that's why it resonated, because I and you are me, and we are all together. And I think that we all think we're so different and things like that, but we really all can have the same experience. And life is hard. And for me, it's really about looking at who you are. And by God, if nobody else wants to embrace you, so what? You embrace you. You step out of the side of the box. You find the courage. You follow that path that you want to do. And that's key.
I love that so, so much. I guess my follow-up question on that, Erin, is, you talk about like embracing yourself and reminding yourself and not putting yourself in the box. So how often, I mean, is that like in your journey? It's not like okay, Erin, yeah, like and this is something that this group is coming off what I think was one of our best events that we've held at LifeVantage, and emotions like super high and everyone's ready to go, but it's like on a daily basis, like we're just brought with doubt. Like what have you done to remind yourself that you're awesome at the end of the day, you're awesome? And what's your advice to this group on making sure that they're their own cheerleader, really?
That takes me kind of to, in a lot of my keynotes, I talk about becoming a RAM, and that stands for realization, assessment, and motivation of oneself. And we can get a negative voice going, and negative Nancy resides for me on a daily basis. That's the other side of you that questions it, that you have to just like go, shut up. Don't talk to me right now. Don't get inside my head. And when we get, life just happens to all of us, and it gets crazy and it's stressful, and we're living through stressful times again. And for me, keeping the motivation going is about self-renewal. I don't think we allow ourselves enough to say, I'm overwhelmed, I'm tired, because when we do, we feel vulnerable, or we're worried about somebody else's perception of us. Where you have to step out of the box, step back, breathe, and reboot. I think of it like a computer. When too much data comes in, the blue dot is processing, it just spins and spins. I think that happens for us too. And it's a moment of recognizing that you're feeling overwhelmed and stepping out of it. It doesn't mean you're giving up. It doesn't mean you're quitting, but it's taking a break. It's processing. And for me, I find that self-renewal moment back in my environment. And that doesn't mean I'm going away. It means I got to step out. So you have to recognize it, step out of it. For me, it's getting back to taking a walk along a riverbank. Honestly, I'm 64 years old, and stopping and going and swinging on the swing sets with the grandkids. Just feeling the breeze through your hair. These are connections, again, that remind you why you're doing what you're doing. Often born of love. Just we all love to want to work, right? And we all love the idea of having a home and paying our bills and sending our kids to college. And so when you feel that stress, it's super important that you recognize it and step out for a moment and self-renew. You give back to yourself. And that's key.
I love that so, so much. So what I'm hearing from your journey is it started young, and it's an everyday thing to keep yourself kind of.
Oh, yeah.
I love that.
Absolutely. There's no magic pill, if you will. And every single day, you just have to, we've all read it and seen it about, these daily affirmations, but there's days where I have stick-it notes all over the place just to even remind myself. You see it and you practice it, and then it becomes nature. Otherwise, you can really get sucked into the negativity of life and other people. So recognize it, own it, don't be afraid of it. We're so afraid to be vulnerable and tired. That's ridiculous. When you understand your vulnerabilities, you'll find out they're your strength.
I love that. Love that. All right. Well, Erin, we've got a bunch of questions that have come in for you. So I'm going to just start going down the list. And, as you're listening to this, everybody, if a question comes up, we're going to also be watching the chat. We want this to feel as just like authentic and natural as possible. So one of the questions that came up that I absolutely love is, I'll say, I think the people on this call deal with this on a consistent basis. But the question was, how do you balance assertiveness and empathy at the same time in your leadership approach? It's like, you got to go in like confident and guns blazing, but also ultimately remember the empathy side of people as well. So how do you balance those two things that at times can almost seem like they're at odds with each other?
Yeah, they kind of really go together, though. It's kind of strange sensation. Empathy comes first, and being that makes a good leader. It isn't about, us and I'm the leader. It is about recognizing other people and what their fears are, or recognizing that they're feeling shy and helping draw them out. And that begins with empathy. And for me, where I shift is like in Hinckley, these people, I went out there and I empathized with them and I understood them. We were symbiotic that way. They wanted to live a life. They wanted clean air. They wanted healthy children. I mean, all of that. And it starts with empathy, but when I see something else surrounding it that wants to put that out, that doesn't recognize their trials and tribulations and doesn't bother to reach out and say, how can I help you? That I flip into, whoa, wait a minute here. And so they're like polar opposites, yet they feed each other. It's really interesting, but it is through my empathy and recognizing somebody else's struggle that starts. But then when I see behind it, because they maybe haven't found themselves yet, somebody else encroaching on that and judging and labeling or whatever, that I'm like, whoa, wait a second here. So for me, it begins with empathy. And then when I see others that are pushing down on someone that lack that empathy because they just want to be the star of the room, or you're impeding on that they push you back down, that I can't help myself. I just am like, stop. We're not doing this.
That's an excellent segue into the next question that I love that someone brought up, and it was about conflict. And inevitably in a leadership journey and building a business and in all the things that you've been a part of, Erin, like you've run into conflict with people. How do you handle conflict? And some people just run away from it, and it's like, if I ignore it, it'll go away. Usually not the best approach. Some people embrace it maybe too boldly, but conflict is going to come up. What is your best advice on how to handle that, especially just with people that you care about on a team, for example?
So that's a great question. And that has evolved for me over time. Anybody who's raised children will realize that conflict evolves over time. I've definitely learned that in my work. Again, to recognize the conflict, and instead of just always reacting, myself stepping away and being willing to listen. We don't do that very often. For me, with teenagers, and we know how they can be sometimes, to be like pulling my nails off to go breathe, reboot, and listen. Be willing to just listen to another side. So my conflict has definitely evolved, and it's very instinctual for me. And when I feel just coming at it head on, there's a time to come at it head on and a time not to. And where do I back away? So if it's the beginning of a situation, it's like, let me step out of this for a minute. Let me clear my mind and let me be willing to listen and hear what you're saying. And then I can approach it differently. So there's not always a right way or a wrong way to handle conflicts. I've learned the hard way because I've been doing this for 30 years. It will always be a part of our life. I think, again, it goes back to understanding yourself, understanding your compassion, understanding that you need to take a breath and be willing to get the information and hear another side before you just come in and get into that conflict. Once I've done that and I still got a conflict and I know the ground I'm standing on, then I'll hold the ground. So it's evolution. We learn a lot as we mature. Yeah, I started my work when I was 31, and I was a very different person there in a reactionary way than I am today at 64. And that's just been a process of learning what works, what doesn't work, being able to be with your coworkers and have that empathy or instinct something's going on, being able to approach, being able to recognize a conflict is coming. And I think that we think when we back away from a conflict, we're weak. But I think that's your strength, because that opens up a whole new avenue for you to look at what the conflict is to maybe resolve it. So it's a learning game. I think it's life.
I love that.
But recognizing it and recognizing yourself and I've had to do that a lot, even now, where I've had to go, whoa, wait a minute. That was wow. Back up here a second and reapproach. I think of these conflicts like planes coming in, and they have this short window here. If there's a crosswind, do I land and crash or do I take back off? So you got a second here. If you feel it, if you instinct it, if that instinctual thing is telling you, whoa, you have a real quick moment here. You either take off and reapproach or get ready for the crash. It's difficult. But if you are present and open to a conflict, there's resolutions. So the minute for me that you feel it, and we know this, it's something I can't even teach because we all experience it. We know it, and moms especially. I know my kid's lying to me, but you second guess it. So when you get that, go with it, and that's your split second to decide: am I coming in, or do I need to reapproach with you before this conflict can get really out of control?
All right, I got to ask you guys, if you are relating to anything that Erin has said, like, blow up the chat with what is just standing out. I feel like you're speaking directly to me on this, Erin. That was absolutely.
It's learned. It really is, and it's not easy. And like I told you, that 31-year-old, I could blast you, and I still can now, but it would be more thoughtful, more vetted, more stepping away and assessing the situation before I come back in. And I either going to end the conflict or I'm going to continue it. So it's really learned, and we all know it. And I just think that it's a process that we have to go through.
Well, so there was a question that I loved that came up. That was, and you shared your age. So you said you were 31 when you started, but the question was basically, what would 64-year-old Erin, they didn't know your age, so they didn't put that exact number, but what would
64?
You look at me.
I can't change that. I'm sorry. I wish I could.
I mean,
If you're under 55, I don't want to talk to you anyways. I mean,
Tandem is helping that though, right? What would 64-year-old Erin tell 31-year-old Erin? What would your advice be if you could go back to just starting your work? What advice would 64-year-old Erin give 31-year-old Erin?
Believe in yourself more. Cut out the noise. Don't really let other people's negative opinion of what they think you are ever steer you away from what you know you are. And that would be a very strong message to the young Erin. And I think that when you find that person, it's easier for you to take a beat, to listen, to have empathy, I want to understand, I get it, and be able to reapproach with, this is my perception, and how can we get where we both obviously, I think, want to go. And I think all of us want to be in a better place. So I would absolutely tell the younger Erin, Um, you gotta cut the noise, that voice out that says you can't, and know the real you and say you can. And be able to do that gracefully. That's what I'd tell her. And I'd give her a big hug. You got this.
Oh, so powerful. One of the other questions that came in, kind of shifting a little bit to just working as a team. And I know you have had to, like, the success that you have hasn't been something that you've been able to do in a silo. You've really had to master how do you work with others and work as a team. And one of the questions that came up here was all around like motivation. And I'm assuming the question is coming from like sometimes you have team members who join your business as a consultant and they're very excited day one, but that motivation kind of goes down. As a leader, how do you keep the team motivated?
That's a great question. It makes me think about, well, because when you are a team, everybody may have different circumstances going on in a day.
Mm-hmm.
And recognize that person and ask what's going on, or how can I help, or have empathy, or I get it. I've been there, and be able to offer some type of comfort or advice to help them lift out of that funk. So not everybody every day is on the same page. So I think it's important to have a lot of self-awareness. You know, in my work, I talk about my logic, leverage, loyalty, and love. Logic's your common sense. Leverage is the power of the team and how you can work in unison. Loyalty's being having the stick-to-itiveness, and ultimately for me, our motivator in life, why we're doing everything we do. And that's honestly because you love. You love and care about a coworker. So if you see them like that, don't be afraid to step in and say, how's everything going? What's going on? And being able to lift them up. That's what team members do. You know, it makes me think of my son, who is a combat vet, and they'd been ambushed, and the team, a bomb went off. And Matthew's motto was no team members ever left behind.
Wow.
And I think it's really important that we recognize we are a team. And so if you see a team member struggling, don't leave them behind. Don't be afraid to step out and say, how can I help today? Because when you lift one team up, the whole team comes up. So not all of us are on the same page every single day. And life can throw every one of us a curveball at any time. The team is invaluable. And I learned in Hinckley, you know, just I wasn't going to do Hinckley. You know, just the attorney wasn't going to do Hinckley. It was one mom, Roberta Walker, and we quickly learned that mathematically 1 + 1 = 2, but the power of a team is 1 + 1 is 1,000 or more, and what you can actually accomplish. So recognize a team member who may be struggling.
I love that because I think sometimes it's easy to assume that maybe someone is not motivated because of a skill or because of this, that, or the other. But instead of just assuming, like, just ask, you know, check on them first. Are they okay? Like, such simple advice, but it makes so much sense. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, it's really true. And if you think about it, you know, family, it's a team, it's support. And I think about my son all the time. And because someone's down, you don't leave them down. How do I come in here and help you?
Yeah. I love that. That is such a so powerful. And I mean, thinking about his experience in that, how that goes together. I mean, wow, that's amazing.
Well, you know, I got on a happier note, I got it was a great honor to pass the Olympic torch. And, you know, that doesn't get across the United States of America, but with one person. It's a team. And it's being able to pass it on. And, you know, you may make your place in leadership, but be willing to pass that on. That's what makes a good leader. That's what's part of the team. And pass that on for the next person to find that success. And I remember when I passed it and I, did that race and I was so afraid and it was people along the side, that had done it before that are like, don't be afraid, turn around, grab it. And I think it's, and they were doing that as leaders for me as part of a team. And that's what we do. We pass it on. We can't just covet everything for ourselves. We are leaders, but recognize somebody else that is that leader, but might not have that quality, but don't be afraid to come in and pass that along to them. That's what makes a strong team.
So I love that you just brought that up. And Selena put in the chat at this event this past weekend that everybody on this call qualified for, we gave each of them like a LifeVantage baton. And the message
There you go.
was like, you're next. And literally, they took a picture with Steve and with me. Oh, I'm seeing someone just held that up. Love that, Mary. I saw you pull that up. But it was like, it's such a good message and it was fun and in the moment. But can you talk a little bit more about the responsibility of accepting the baton? And then my follow-up question is going to be the responsibility of passing it. And I know you have a great actual story of that, but these people just went through this exercise of accepting that baton. So what is kind of the balance of accept it, but know when to pass it?
Oh boy. And again, that's a great question. I would have to look back at moments in my life and like that baton. Coveting is never good. I'm not going to give it up. And I think it's about, for me, there's been a few times in my life where I'm like, you just need to get over yourself. And look at what's the right thing to do and look at the power of the collective and the team and being willing to realize, I think that we think passing a baton is passing something on and giving up, but it's the passing on of that is the strength.
I love that. This industry is interesting because one of the levers that we have is recognition. And in the chat, like, tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, how important is recognition in this business? It is so important. But sometimes, like, what I have noticed is like the people who crave the most recognition, like, often get the least amount of it. And the people who are focused on giving the most recognition usually get the most recognition themselves, right? So it's like not being afraid to moving on to just passing the baton to somebody. For some people, it's like, well, if I have another leader, they might not make me look as good. But it's this crazy thing that like the less recognition you crave and the more you give it, probably the more you're going to get. Have you noticed that?
Oh, absolutely. And I've been in these positions. I am far from a perfect person. I love to share what it is that I've learned that does work. And when you covet something like that, it won't work. It is about opening up and sharing with others and recognizing that together we can do it. And there's been days where, I'm just like, you just need to get over yourself, Erin. You get out of your own way and you're holding this whole thing up. And it's about fear, letting go of your fear. It's about finding your courage. It's about finding that even if it didn't work out the way you thought, that you did the right thing possible, not just for you, but for the team. And maybe you'll do better next time. So I think it's about getting over your fears and your insecurities and finding your courage. It's what is that old adage? If you hang on to all your money, you never get any more. But if you let it go, I just think sometimes you just have to let things go. You have to have some faith. You have to believe and trust in the feelings that you have, the experience you're having, and the decisions that you're making. And it's okay if you're not number one all the time. Every position matters.
Every position matter. Like, that's such good advice. And in this business, what I love about it is you do better when you help somebody else do better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You feel better. It's amazing. And it's contagious.
Well, and you think about, I think about the strongest leaders that I've been around, and it's always the ones that are trying to elevate others versus get them like elevate themselves. So, and
Yeah.
like our business model is a great testament to like you're successful when you help somebody else be successful.
It's very, very true. And, that's what for my self renewal is when I get back to the environment is to look at the diversity and how each helps everything. One doesn't always work without the other. And for me, it's always good to watch that happen. And sometimes I think and I will tell you for me, because we don't like to talk about our vulnerabilities, is if something is not going right, maybe check in with yourself and what your agenda is. And I've had to do that and realize what it is. And maybe it isn't and wasn't presenting itself as the betterment of somebody else. And maybe that could have been what was holding me back.
Yeah. That
It's a hard thing to do. It's a scary thing to do.
Yeah, no, that inward look is often like the hardest one to do, but it's the most important, right?
It is. And I've really learned over time. And I would tell that younger self, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
I love that. Well, Erin, I know you've got to go. You're ready to catch a flight. So we have 4 minutes left.
Oh, okay.
And I'm going to end with the question that is like the all encompassing that everybody hates, but it's kind of like my favorite question to end an interview with. But one piece of advice for this group, like maybe it's something we've already covered that you want to just know, really, this is kind of the most important thing to remember. But, this is a group who's making that commitment to go to the next level of leadership in their LifeVantage business. And as a leader yourself, as someone who has done amazing things, what is the one piece of advice that you would leave them with on this call tonight?
What's the question again?
To just as they're growing their impact. They're at a place where they've had incredible success, but the next jump for them to get to the executive level, it's going to take a different kind of leadership. And we've talked a lot about this. So what would be your advice to go from you've done great, celebrate this, but to grow to the next level, it's going to take more leadership development on their part. What would be your advice to them?
I think, that's a moment where you step back and you reflect. For me, it's be the ram, be sure of yourself, be confident, know your territory, don't be afraid, letting go and passing on to another is the greatest freedom that you'll experience, and you will be stronger for it. And so it's a matter of self-discovery. Realize who you are. Stand with yourself. Trust yourself. Believe in yourself. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. And don't ever be afraid of making a mistake. I think that's part of the learning process. And so to have that motivation and to find that freedom and how exhilarating it is from everything you've learned, to find that courage and to pass it along. And if you get stuck or you're uncertain, that's the beat where you step out, step back, be quiet, get present, get into who you are, know you, and then come out the next day and you'll do the right thing.
Oh, I love that so much. Erin, like the page of notes that I have, like, again, did you all feel like she was talking directly to you? Or maybe you felt like she was talking directly to me because I took so many notes, but
you and I always chat, but no, I mean, I hope it helps. Listen, I think my theme song would be the Beatles, I Am You, You Are Me, We Are All Together, and we all think it is so different, and we all have different circumstances. But if there's anything that I've learned is Superman's not coming, and no one else is going to give you the answers. No one's going to do it for you. It's about the power of loving yourself, respecting yourself, believing in yourself, embracing yourself as flawed as you may think you are. that is the person that needs to stand with you. And that's what I wish all of us can find. And that's the power of who you are, and loving, embracing, and believing in that person. Failures and all.
Absolute mic drop. I mean, Erin, thank you again for your time. I know you're heading out to catch a flight.
Thank you for everything that you do. And just remember something, LifeVantage would not be LifeVantage without you. What makes it work.
All right. Well, have a good night, Erin. Have a safe flight. We appreciate you. And thanks.
Well,
Thank you for tuning in to today's special episode of Activation Nation. A big thank you to Erin Brockovich for sharing her wisdom and leadership insights with the September Growth Summit attendees. Her words are a powerful reminder of what it means to lead with purpose, integrity, and a commitment to making a difference. I hope that you're feeling inspired and ready to step into leadership with a renewed sense of passion and clarity. If Erin's message resonated with you, be sure to share this episode with others on your team and keep applying these powerful leadership principles to your own journey. Until next time, let's keep activating our potential and leading with purpose.